Guys, welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're returning, well, I'm back. I'm finally back to recording again. So you're going to see me a lot more often.
But explain to me like what that means.
So I took a little break.
Okay.
Because I had an objective to complete. And I'm glad that I finally did it.
What was it?
So I was on this journey
Mm-hmm.
to get my contractor's license. Or not, to get it, I guess. I'm still on the journey because it hasn't officially completed. But I had to take the test. And so you have to apply for it. You have to get approved. They send you an eligibility letter.
Is there a certain criteria that you have to meet in order to be eligible?
Yeah, so if you want to get it, like, first of all, you have to figure out what license you're going for, because there's like three, I think. There's the residential builder, there's the general builder, and then there's the top of the top. I think it's like you have to take the NASCLA test. I'm not sure what the title is for that one.
Okay.
But that one's like the top level. And then each category is like the residential one, you could build houses. Like residential homes. And the next one up, you can go into commercial buildings and stuff like that. And I think the last one, you can make like, what do you call them? Like skyscrapers and stuff, like really big industrial buildings.
So, for example, it goes by the amount of what the project is going to cost to make, or like are the levels, how are they categorized?
So each category, I'm not sure about the builder one and then the one above that one, how that one works, because I just focus on residential. The residential, even to that, there's 3 tiers. There's the limited, the intermediate, and then the unlimited.
To residential?
Yeah, just to residential. Yeah. Okay. So the limited one is projects up to 750,000.
Okay.
Residential. And then the intermediate is up to 1,500,000, and then the unlimited is whatever amount. It doesn't matter the cost.
But there you're only like constrained to building like you could say residential homes, right?
Yeah. So you could build like a mansion. Like just limited up to 750, and then intermediate 1,500,000.
Yeah, and for example, whenever you started, it was what I felt like it was like that we put that pressure on you, like me and Dad put that pressure on you to kind of, I guess, search for your own way. Since I do certain things good, I feel like you can do certain things good. But obviously it was also up to you to decide and say like, hey, I'm going to do it, because like you could be my brother and I can ask of you to go become a plumber. But if you don't really want that, then you're not going to chase that.
Yeah. And I feel that completely, because at the beginning, it was kind of like a task that was put on me. And I feel like it came at a time where I was like kind of searching of like what I wanted to do.
Because you went to school before that too, right?
Yeah, like, what do you mean?
Weren't you going to sign up for CPCC classes and then like go into human resources?
Yeah. So yeah, it was straight out of high school. We ran the business. So I didn't really go to college, or that wasn't something that I aspired to go to, like most other people do, just because I felt like I had to work in the family business, And so when we started working in that, I signed up to classes at CPCC
But that wasn't really something you like wanted or craved, or was like essentially something that you didn't even know what you were going to do with like human resources.
Yeah, exactly. I just felt like it was something that it could help me, like in what I was doing, but it wasn't ultimately what I really wanted.
And for example, I can appreciate that you at least took up the task and said like, hey, I'm gonna do it. And at first it kind of started slow, because I felt like you weren't taking it serious, because maybe you weren't, like you were like, oh well, this test is gonna be easy, and like I just have to buy my books, which the books are also expensive.
Yeah, and so they charge you more if they send you it like highlighted and tabbed and things like that.
And those training courses, like, do they end up working, or like how'd you feel like they because those courses are like between what I saw is 2,000, 3,500, or like $4,000.
Yeah, so I feel like if you really want to do it, you could just buy the basic package, study all the material, and then you can take the test.
Does that mean reading every single book word by word? Does that help?
No, it's also important to know what to study, right? Because there's like a strategy to take the test. What I learned is that allegedly, right, North Carolina wants you to maybe fail the test a few times, because every time you try to take the test, you have to pay a fee, right? So yeah, there's a strategy that goes into it, because I guess the test is kind of working against you.
How much is that fee?
$80.
Okay.
Yeah, $80 every time you take the test, so it's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the closest thing that I can relate it to is like when you take your driver's license test,
mm-hmm.
you have to like go take the test, and then there's a question that asks something, right? And then there's two questions that are right, but you have to choose the one that's more right, per se. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, there's a strategy that goes into it, but when you pay a course like that, I feel like it's important to know what to study. And so like, I feel like it is worth it if you pay extra for the highlighted books and then the tabbed books, because you get an idea of like what you need to study, right? In certain books, you need a certain amount of information from, because the whole test is taking like different parts of every book and put it into the test. And that's what you get questioned on.
Okay, so for example, and every single time you would like go take it, it'd be like different things popping up. So necessarily, if you read every single page word by word, which I feel like it'd be impossible to remember everything, because it's like thick books.
Yeah, and so like you could take in 4 books, but a lot of the important questions are not in the books that you can take.
Important questions?
Yeah, like important questions. For example, there's roofing questions, or there's concrete questions. There's questions about handling material, like handling trusses and stuff like that. Like just like little important details that are like really important when you go take the test.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw you like, just so that everyone knows, you took the test how many times?
I want to say failed it like 4 times.
4 times.
4 times, yeah. At the 5th time I passed it, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, and...
But how long was that?
Yeah, I mean, the course of that was 1.5 to 2 years, maybe.
I think so, because I remember you telling Dad, Dad, I'm going to give you this on Father's Day, or like that was kind of your plan, I think 2 years ago, to say like, oh, I'm gonna give Dad the fact that like, hey, I'm like, now I'm a contractor, because I mean it would help the family business.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was essentially something that you wanted to give to Dad as a gift, and be like, hey, like, you know, now I got my license.
Yeah, and like that was a thought that I had before I went to go take the test, like the first time, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because
how'd you feel?
Because I didn't know how hard the test was gonna be. And after the first time, it was like, damn, I need to study.
Yeah.
Like, you really need to take it seriously. It has to be something that you really want to do. Otherwise, I wouldn't really recommend it. Like, if it's something that you just want to get just because, I don't recommend doing it, because it's just, you're like torturing yourself with trying to learn all this information. And if it's not something that you want to read every day or try to focus on or try to learn, then it's not going to work out.
And you know what I noticed every single time like you failed? You felt a little bit more like defeated, or like you felt like, damn, I'm dumb. Like, or damn, like, am I ever going to be capable of doing this? And that's where I kind of saw your evolution of like you learning how to study kind of taught you a lot of things, because I feel like God also does this type of things, or makes you feel, because like you're going to go through a journey. These past 2 years, you're different than from where you started. You're different mentally, like in so many different aspects, because I think during that time you were also like listening to Napoleon Hill, and you were like, be purposeful of what you want, to be oriented, have the habit of thinking the things that are important and leaving out the unimportant facts. Positive mental attitude, like, which was one of the things that I saw that you were at first, like, you got to be positive that this is going to turn out no matter how many hours of studying it's going to take. Because I would see sometimes it'd be 3 hours of studying and 3 hours of also taking notes. You filled up like 2 or 3 notebooks of just notes, highlighting. And it was essentially built up like 3-4 journals of like a whole bunch of information. And then whenever you went to take the test, you failed the 4th time, and it was like what is this?
Yeah, like, what am I doing? Yeah, so the first time it was very defeating because I went into the test and I was like, okay, well, I think I've done enough. And so I went to go take the test and I got like a 40 on it, or like a 30. It was like really bad. And
What do you need to pass?
Damn, you need a 70.
A 70?
70, yeah. And so it's 95 questions, and it comes out to roughly like 1.05, like the valuation of each question, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you need to get like, out of the 95, you need to get at least like 69 questions right.
Okay.
Yeah, like that's the bare minimum. And so, yeah, I mean, although they highlight the information and you can buy all the information like that, I mean, one of the things that I did was kind of like rewrite the notes in my own words. You know, like I would try to memorize what I was writing. That was one of the tips that that they told us at one of the seminars that I went to. And you were actually there with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, put it in your own words?
I guess not necessarily put it in my own words, but like just write it like with my handwriting, write it so I can try to memorize it by writing the words. Maybe it'll stick more or something like that. And
that's actually an ability of like a study. I think that's like a studying skill to where like you just memorize it because you write it, you read it, and something else. Like it's one more level to like the study level, because like you said, it sticks. It starts to become like a second habit of you remembering things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it was also a journey of me learning how to study, like you said, because when I was in high school, or like even in middle school, I remember that every time the teacher would teach us something, I would kind of get on the first listen, I guess you could say, right? And we had a test on it, and you would see other kids worry about studying. Right. And I wasn't one of those kids. I wasn't really good at studying, you could say. It wasn't like one of my habits to get some new material and then study and then go take the test. I would kind of like learn it off of rip and go take the test, and I would pass most of the times.
So that at the end that kind of affected you a little bit, because like you had never studied, so it's like now I gotta study. Like, what is studying?
Yeah, exactly. And so I would look up tips and stuff on how to focus, and ultimately, you just gotta study. You just gotta focus. Whatever you're reading, you kind of have to repeat it in your head and try to make it stick. Because I feel like sometimes you as a person can read something, but it might not like stick all the way, or you might not comprehend it all the way, like the thing that you are actually reading.
Yeah, I think I get what you mean. Like whenever I'm reading books, I'll read like 5 pages and then I'll come back to it and I'll be like, what did I just read? Like,
exactly.
What I'm not reading actively. I feel like sometimes my mind or my eyes are locked into the words and to the pages, but they aren't necessarily like, my brain isn't necessarily locked into like what the book is trying to state. Like the idea, none of that. It's just simple reading, and it's kind of hard to like. In today's world, it's like you have your phone, you have this, like you have to kind of isolate yourself from all of this so that you can really focus, because multitasking for us as humans, it's impossible. Anybody that says that they can multitask, no, because multitasking is like, okay, I'm gonna take your order and at the same time I'll be talking over here.
Yeah, that's something very difficult to do, especially when you're studying like that material, because it's like the little details that matter. Like
okay.
that's one of the things that I came to find out, that it could be like the smallest note in the concrete book, right? That's like huge. Yeah. It's like the smallest detail. You get asked about that, and then the day of the test you don't know. You're like, bruh, this is something like so simple that I probably read over a bunch of times, but right now it just like slipped out of the mind because you thought about all the bigger things that you thought they were gonna ask you. But like I said, it's really about the detail when you're taking this test.
Man, and it was hard to see every single time like you failed, like, but I think what really changed it, and for example, I wasn't able to get it because obviously I still have DACA, and in order for you to apply for the license or anything like that, you have to be at least a resident or a citizen of the United States, because I think it's like a 10-year. How long does the license last?
It lasts forever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you don't renew it for 4 years, then you can't renew it for it again. You have to go through the whole process again.
Okay.
Yeah, so yearly you have to renew it.
And for example, what I was telling you, it's like I couldn't get it, but I still kind of went through the journey with you. I didn't necessarily study the books, but that one course that we took, because I also went with you to kind of see like how it was. Yeah, it was how much was it? Like $200 or $500?
I think it was like 400 each.
Right?
Each, yeah.
Okay, and I was like, bro, like, this is such a huge investment. Like, why are we even going to do this? Like, why are we even going to this? Is this even going to work? Mm-hmm. But, the way that the instructor spoke, I was like, wow, like, he's right. He's like, all of you guys are in this class today. He's like, and I'm going to give you the secrets to what you have to do in order to pass your test. I have the book in front of you that you're going to need. All you have to do is study 3 hours a day, every day for 30 days, and you're going to pass it. But you know what? None of you guys are going to do that because you're going to be here in the next 2 years again.
Yeah, that was something pretty interesting, because if you looked around the room, me and you were like the only ones that were, I guess you could say, kind of young, right?
No, we were the youngest, except there was another guy, but I mean, he probably looked more kind of like 30-ish.
Yeah. And so that was the thing that I kind of was afraid of. I'm like, damn, is this something that I'm going to be trying to get for like 15 years or something like that?
It was intimidating for sure, because I mean, there's an older group of people in the room that want the same dream as you.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing he said, he's like, I'm going to see a couple of you guys here back again if you don't take this seriously. Because he said that it's happened before, that they take one of his classes or like the seminar, and then 2 years later they pop back up again. Pop back up again. And they're like...
Because I feel like people give up.
Mm-hmm.
The dream, like they give up the dream that they failed and stuff like that, because like you said, maybe North Carolina does want you to like take it multiple times, allegedly, but it's like so many people aspire to be the same thing, and it's like, how do you differentiate, or how do you choose who's going to do it? It's only the people that are actually going to put in the work and like be dedicated, because doing this for 2 years consistently isn't an easy thing, because you constantly have to battle with your like mind, with the fact whether you're going to get it or not. And when you got it, I was like, wow, it feels like nothing, but this accomplishment has 2 years behind it.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like not real when I passed it, honestly. It felt, I don't know, it just felt like it wasn't real. It felt like a dream, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time I failed, it was like, damn, I can't pass it, right? I tried my best and I didn't pass it. And after the last time, like the time that I took it before I passed,
mm-hmm.
I think that's what kind of like changed a little bit, because instead of being disappointed that I failed, I kind of got mad at the test. I had this anger. I was like, man, this test.
Because you
F this test.
You failed it by one question, right?
Yeah, I failed it by one question too, man. I was sick. It said like 68 questions out of whatever, right?
Yeah. And you just needed one more to pass it, and you're like,
one more.
You're like, I was so damn close.
Yeah, I was like this close to passing.
And that's the thing. I feel like a lot of the people that were in that group, like, are people like that. Like, they kind of like, maybe they're 5 questions away or 6 questions away, but the idea I feel like behind it is just like keep on pushing, until like you memorize that thing by like script, every word in your mind. It's just going to be roaming around. So going back to it, like, yeah, that seminar right there, the way that the mentor spoke, I was like, wow, I was like, this is for real. Like, a lot of people are trying to do the same thing, and a lot of people are not going to get it ever in their life.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing I liked about the class is how the book that he gives you kind of orients you where your focus has to be. And he explained that the test was more of an insurance structure test. Mm-hmm. To kind of test, not like, it was like insurance questions. I don't necessarily know what that means, but it's basically covering things that you wouldn't even think about in a construction site. Because he clearly said, he's like, oh yeah, you could have been doing 25 years of construction or 30 years. He said, but you come take this test, you're not gonna pass it.
Yeah.
He said, because there's different terms. The terminology that the insurance companies use is not on this test. You're not going to know it. You're going to get confused, and you're going to choose the wrong question, like, on purpose. Even though it might be right, like you said, it's not right.
Yeah, exactly.
And that seminar, that whole time, I was like, wow. I was like, there's a skill to this. There's more than just like knowing. And I feel like that was one of the pivotal moments that I was like, man, I know Gio's got this after this. Like, but obviously you failed it 2 more times. But
after that,
you failed it 2 more times. But like, I felt like that was one of the pivotal moments where your journey started kind of like changing. You're like, well, now that I know that there's an art to like how to answer the questions, then I'm gonna destructure the question, and I'm gonna figure out what it's trying to ask, because it's confusing.
Yeah, and like in the seminar, he told us that sometimes they give you a little bit of extra information. So it's always important to analyze the question and see what it's asking you really, because sometimes it'll throw in like extra information that it doesn't need in the question. And so like you might use that information in your head and you'll be like, oh, it's this one for sure. But it's like, what is the first part of the question asking you? Yeah, and so like I feel like that was a really helpful tip, because there was times where it's like, what is the outcome of this, right? And it would give you a bunch of extra numbers that you didn't need to use. You just needed to subtract 2 of the numbers, and all those big numbers would be kind of intimidating. You'd be like, oh, I think I need to add all of these and like maybe divide them and like something like that, But yeah, there's definitely strategies to take this test, and I'm glad that we signed up for that seminar, because without that, I don't know how much more longer it would have taken me to pass the test.
Yeah, because it's hard. Like you're saying again, like there's a whole bunch of older people too trying to get that test. But I feel like that seminar really did change my mindset on like, okay, well, there's a skill to this, and it kind of related back to high school. I was like, well, teachers would always say like, hey, if you want to learn how to answer that question, kind of like separate every single word and essentially find the core of what it's trying to ask you, because at the end they make it complicated so that you can have a hard time passing it. And I mean, at the end you just end up failing it. And I think it's just like learning how to destructure the question and learning how to read it. Like you said, maybe there's extras that you didn't even need to know.
Yeah, there was I feel like a lot of the prep for it, they give you a bunch of extra information that you don't need to know, but like just for the test, you don't need to know. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to talk about something. Sorry, we can clip this out, right?
No, it doesn't matter. But okay, for example, now you have the license. Like what are?
Well, I passed the test, and so like that's part of the process of the application. So you could say that I finished the test, and so they're sending my results over there to the North Carolina Board of Contractors, and then I still need to see what the next steps are. They haven't sent me an email or anything. So, but I feel like the major part is done, and I remembered what I was gonna say. You have to be so focused on the test, I feel like, or so motivated by it that doing things like day to day, it kind of bothers you that you can't pass it or that you haven't passed it yet. Because like the months leading up to taking the test, or like to my passing results for the test, I had this like burden, you can say, in my heart or in my chest. That's like, damn, like, what are you doing, you know? Like during the weekdays, you have to focus on studying because you haven't passed your test. On the weekends, I couldn't really enjoy things to the fullest, you could say. Like I was doing things, right? Because there's things I needed to do. But I always had that feeling like, damn, I haven't passed my test, you know? And then added to the fact that I feel like a lot of people expected me to pass the test.
Oh yeah, I did, especially. I know Dad did. Like, it's that pressure that I know made you a little bit like still aware that you weren't passing the test, and
Yeah.
you're like, damn, like, am I letting my brother down? Am I letting my dad down? And then therefore you let yourself down. And you know, I'm glad that Dad didn't let you hold back from like continuing, because sometimes there's instances where like, okay, your family puts pressure on you, but it's not necessarily like to make you feel bad. We're not there to make you feel bad. The whole idea behind this was for you to level up what we know that you can do. It's for you to reach towards bigger goals, because this is just a first step. Next, I'm gonna tell you to do the NASCLA one or the commercial one, because there's levels to this, and that pressure is never gonna stop. Like, and I'd ask of you, and I ask of me, the best that we can do, because if we don't have that pressure, like, then we're not able to grow or able to expand or able to like you said, we have that burden, kind of like, oh man, am I letting people down?
Yeah, exactly.
You feel responsible, and that's what's important, and that's what I can thank you for, that at least you thought that, because there's some I think that for example, if you hadn't had that feeling, then really what were you holding yourself against to?
Like accountable for?
Yeah, nothing. And that's not good either, because you're like, fuck it, like, I failed it.
Yeah, and I feel like a part of that, a lot of people could use that as like, oh, it's too much pressure, or like I can't pass it or something like that, you know. But yeah, as the months before leading up to it, to the test, it became kind of like fuel, you know. And like I told myself, well, what do I really want in life, right? If I in the future have a family, I need to set up my family. By having this license, I could build a house, build my own house, build my parents' house, build, you know what I'm saying, my family, how I could set them up. And so that was a huge driving force for me too, like knowing that this was the first step to building my future, you know. And so I thank God, honestly, that He gave me the strength to have it and to like really want to pass this test, because like I said, after that last time that I failed, I got mad at the test, and that was like fuel for me to pass it the next time. I was like, next time I'm gonna pass it, you know. Like it's gonna be next time. It has to be. And then I feel like the feeling after you fail the test and like telling everybody you failed the test and them kind of feeling bad for you, like I never really liked that. You know, it's like, oh no, you got it, man, you got next time, you know. And I'm glad I had all the support that I did, you know, the people who supported me, because it was like I'm doing it for them too, you know. And I'm glad that I have that, because I feel like there's people who might not have that in their lives, so I'm really thankful for that as well.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And for example, I think this is the start of the journey, and you're just not going to stop here. I think you should also keep on pressuring yourself to like go get the commercial one, go get the NASCLA one, like keep on leveling up, just the same way that I feel like our family or like our parents put that pressure on us. And like you said, you can make excuses like, oh, that's too much pressure, it's overwhelming, or it's kind of depressive, that people or your parents don't even look at it like, oh yeah, he did a lot. Well, maybe you didn't do a lot. Like, do you, like, I ask myself that question, because every single time if it were like, okay, you have to get your test, and then your dad says, well, you didn't try hard enough. You kind of feel bad because you felt like you did. But like if in reality, you really ask yourself, did I try hard enough? Did I do enough? Had I done enough, I would have passed it. Then you kind of come to a self-realization like,
I could do more.
Exactly.
I should do more.
Exactly. So it's that. That's also like, I guess, a value or a skill that one needs to build up, because it's impossible to do anything if you don't have that tenacity or that obligation or that responsibility towards the bad remarks too, because it's like, hey, like, look at it for what it is. You decide how you feel on it. The remark isn't making the change in it. Like you're making, in your mind, the back of your mind, or somewhere deep into it, that you didn't do enough. Had you done enough, you would have done the task at hand. And essentially that's what it was. Like, you put yourself with that pressure, and you didn't let yourself succumb to what we were saying or the pressures that we were putting on you. Just kept on going, and obviously it feels shitty whenever you don't pass it. But hey, like now it's like, okay, now it's done, and it's like,
what's next? Yeah, it's definitely exciting because it opens doors for me. You know, like I felt like everything that I wanted to do, the first step, like step 1, pass the test. And so now that I passed the test, it's exciting. It's like, what am I gonna do now? You know, like, what's the next step? Where am I gonna go from here? It's only up from here.
And that's like a good way of thinking about it, because like it's like now you open the doors to opportunity, and you're like, well, where am I gonna go? It's like now you have to have a plan of like where you want to steer the ship and where you want to land. Like, do I want to land in at $1 million, or do I want to land at $10,000? Like, now you get to decide, and that's good to have, because now you have options.
Yeah, exactly. And before, it was something that I didn't have, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm glad that, I guess I was tasked the job, but it was something that eventually became something that I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this, you know, because not only am I benefit, but it could benefit everybody around me.
And, you know, you passing your test doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, now you're licensed and everything, right? Now you have to be even more responsible to like anything you do.
Yeah, so if I studied before, now I have to study like 10 times more to be able to be responsible, because getting the license not only gives you permission to be able to build whatever you want, you know, pull permits, do all these things, but you also take on a huge responsibility to say, okay, I'm putting my seal of approval on this. You know, it's done right. But if something were to happen, guess who's the fault gonna land on? You. Because you know, you get a license number. And then if they see that your license number is on that, they're gonna come look for you. And you're gonna be the one responsible.
And what I found surprising was that I told the instructor, I told him, okay, so like take for instance that, okay, let's say that we built a house and then 15 years later, we didn't put up that truss right. But the inspector also approved it. An engineer also approved it. An architect also approved it. He's like, no, it falls on the builder.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you serious? Like, no one else takes responsibility for this?
Yeah, nobody. It has to be you.
So it's also a huge responsibility now that you have in your hands, and it's I think it'll help you grow too, though, because like just like you said, I used to study a lot, but now you have to study even more to make sure that that the responsibility you have at hand, or the power that you have, you hold it with such responsibility that 15 years from now you'll still keep on being licensed, because one mistake can end it all too, and that's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it definitely can be, but I also feel like taking the test, or like that journey to take the test, also teaches you how to use the there's a code book. There's like a code binder. It's like about that thick. And that's one of the books that you can take into the test. And there's certain questions that ask you like a specific size. And keep in mind that the test is timed, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a strategy where you go through... The strategy that I use is I went through the whole test, and the questions that I didn't know, I would just skip. I wouldn't even think about it. I wouldn't be like, oh, shit, I don't know this question. You know? At first, I did. At first, like, I would try to go through the test, see what I know, and I'd skip a bunch of them. I'd be like, dang, I don't know this question. What is it? And you don't have time to think, because if you divide the test into like minutes per question, you only get like 3.5 minutes in each question, I think.
And that's a little bit, because it's like the question's so packed.
Yeah, exactly. And so like if they're asking you a question and you waste a bunch of time looking for the answers in the code book, then you're probably going to run out of time before you can finish the whole test. And so that was I feel like that's a key in being able to pass a test, is that you have this responsibility after you pass it. So it prepares you by kind of like teaching you how to find the correct answers, or like know where to look. You know, if a situation comes up and you need to know about a code, you have an idea, or you know where in the book to look. You know? Yeah,
and that whole journey of you like re-looking at the books, now you're like, okay, well, if I have an issue over here, I'm gonna just go back to my collection of books and like scroll up and look at the right paragraph, right page, and be like, look, this is what it says right here.
Yeah, so one of the things that I tried to do was memorize kind of like the index. So if there was like a certain question, I would like write it on the piece of paper. And I would just kind of like collect all the numbers of questions that had to pertain to a certain topic that I knew were in the book. And so when I would finish the whole thing, I would go back to that question. And so I would be in that section, and then I'd just skip to every question that had to do with the book that I was looking at. And I would find the answers. And so I got pretty good at looking up the codes in the code book. Because there's also parts where, like, for example, it asks you about a foundation, right? There's a foundation section in the book, but there's also like a high, what's it called? Like coastal areas and like high hazard zones. And there's also foundation information in that.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, you have to see, like, for example, like above 130, 140 mile per hour winds, like how does the shingle need to be attached? You know, there's a roofing section, but you know it's not in the roofing section. It's in the coastal high hazard area section.
Okay.
And what's crazy is that, for example, I remember that specific like topic, because that was one of the things that would waste my time a lot. I would be looking through the roofing questions. I would be like, man, like roofing section, like where is this question, you know? And that roofing section, it's in the front of the book, and the coastal high hazard area is all the way in the back, like page 500.
Dang,
like that.
So it's like it kind of like you're looking at page 1, and then it's all the way here on page 500, and you're trying to scroll through it, but you're never gonna find it.
Yeah, you're never gonna find it unless you've taken the time out to learn where in the book you need to look for the answer, because you know the answer's in there, and it's even more frustrating when you can't find the answer and you know it's there.
It's like having a cheat book and you can't even use it, right?
Yeah, because there's so much information. And you don't know what the questions are going to be on, so you can't go in like prepared, you know, unless you take the time to learn the code book in and out and know where to find the answer.
And I think now that you win, like, okay, you let's say you struggled to get the test or like get the test passed, but now you have like a collection of like things like that. Like, I couldn't tell you that. I don't know where it is. I don't know how to read the index, but now you know how to read it. Like, you've gone through it so many damn times that you're like, hey, like, this is how it's done. This is how it's done. To where, I'm excited, because whenever an inspector comes out and says, like, okay, well, that stairwell needs to be this at the bottom and this at the top. If you did your homework right and he's saying a different thing, all you need to do is send him a picture of the code book and be like, here, look.
And he'll approve.
Yeah, and look at this. And it's not even fighting. It's just justifying your work.
Exactly.
So you know you didn't do things wrong. It's the inspector, because inspectors also make mistakes.
And that's why it falls on you, because you're the one that's supposed to know or like have that code book. Like, now that you talk about stairs, one of the questions was like, what is the minimum height of the guard, like on a set of stairs, and it's like minimum 34 inches up to maximum of 38 inches, right? But like it asks that question, like it asks like that in the question, minimum, it's minimum of 34, maximum of 38. And so some of the questions, like I said, you have to know what it's asking you, because sometimes it'll like ask the maximum, and one of the answers could be like the minimum. You know what I'm saying? The maximum in this case being 38, and then the minimum 34. 34 could be one of the answers in the question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you really have to know. You can't just have an idea. You need to know where to find it and what the right answer is.
And I think even if someone were smart enough to, like, let's say just like read a few books and like get through it and pass it, it also takes a lot, because, for example, if that person now is going to build a house and just took the test, going back to it, like he or she would have to go back to his test like so many times, like the book so many times, that it'd be kind of impossible for them to even build anything.
Yeah, start building a house off of it. Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's an art to this too, and there's a huge responsibility on it. Like, if you don't know how to build a house and you have a license.
Yeah, that also seemed kind of funny. Like, dang, I don't know how to do this. And if I pass it, I get the license, but you don't really know how to start, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? And you have a license.
And then maybe that's how you felt like the first time. But now that you took it here like the 5th time and you passed it, you're like, well, now I know how to build a house. Like, from my knowledge, obviously it would still take hiring subcontractors that know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, because you're not going to be the one that's going to do everything.
Yeah. Now you're just going to carry crews that are going to do it. But you also have to make sure that this is being done right. Mm-hmm. With the right measurements, right layout. The blocks need to be set well.
Yeah, foundations, everything.
All that. But I think the journey is just started, and it can only get better from here.
42.
Okay. So, do you think there's anything else you'd like to?
Yeah. I believe in you if you're trying to take your test. And really, it takes motivation from you to want to do it. And if you have people supporting you, take that and use it as fuel, really, to want to do better in anything you're doing. Because, one of my friends, one of my best friends, actually, he tried to take his insurance test, because there's a, like you said, the insurance
You also
test.
tried to take the insurance test.
I think I did one time or something, but it was not something that I took seriously. I was like, let me see what it's about, And he took the test and he said that he failed miserably, So if you're going to try to take one of these tests, one of the ones that you get taken into a room and there's cameras and there's a proctor that checks your ID and all this stuff.
It takes away your phone, takes like all your belongings.
Yeah, they make you put your belongings in a locker and stuff like that. You gotta want it. You gotta want it. And I feel like that's the best advice I can give.
And so if anybody wants to take that test, I kind of saw your journey, and it really takes dedication and motivation to want to even do it. And just know that you are holding yourself accountable to a whole new level of responsibility, because you are building out here America. So it's like, if that house falls, it also fall on you. Any liability, anything, and it's pretty scary, but it can also be one of the greatest adventures if you're looking to become a contractor. And once I get my papers too, I think I'm also go for it. If I fail it, I'll be like, yo, what the heck? Like,
nah, but I'll definitely be able to help.
Yeah, exactly. So
and if there's a contractor that appeared or something like that, maybe on YouTube, that you're looking on how to pass it, hit me up. I could probably help you.
Yeah, and now you have to kind of look for a mentor to kind of like guide you too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, there needs to be a focus on what I want to do next. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many things that I can do now, but if you're not really focused, because I saw a bunch of videos too, like, all right, now I have my license. I envisioned myself having the license. And so I would look at videos like, okay, I have my license, now what? You need to know what your focus of the business is, what you're gonna do, if you want to specialize in something, you know, because it's a lot. Now you have like a broad horizon, and you just need to lock in on the things that you need to do.
Okay. And I do appreciate you sharing this information. Hopefully anybody tuning in did get a little bit of insight on what they're gonna step into. So if you guys want any advice or tips, we're always open. You guys can email us, or you guys can hit our DMs. We'll try to answer them as soon as possible. I mean, we're also busy, so I just have patience in advance. So Jill, anything you wanna close us out?
If you stayed this long, thank you for watching, and you'll definitely be seeing more of me. So I'm glad to be back.
Okay. Well, make sure then you guys catch us on the next one.
Like, comment, subscribe.
See you guys later.